This PowerPoint presentation was prepared for the Capital Area Woodworkers in May 2020 and documents my use of traditional hide glue to repair two antique tool tills. I purchased this tool chest at an auction in Springfield, Illinois in August of 2015. There were also several boxes of antique carpenter tools, including planes and chisels, but all of them sold for more than I was willing to pay for them. The box and tools were said to have belonged to the previous owner's grandfather, who likely built this chest as he moved from an apprentice to a journeyman carpenter. The previous owner passed away at 95, so this chest likely dates to the mid to late 1800s. The outside is a bit rough, but in good shape for a tool chest of this vintage that was used by a working carpenter. Green paint seems to be common on these, likely due to its durability. The back of the chest is in much better shape than the front, evidence that it likely spent most of its time against a wall where it was protected. There is also no chain or holdfast on the interior of the lid, leading me to believe that this was used in a shop and did not travel much, if at all. Again, as is typical for the period and purpose, the corners on this chest are reinforced with metal, and the carrying handles are industrial strength to accommodate the weight of the loaded tool chest. This type of chest is usually referred to as an English-style tool chest, and it is of typical construction for the period. The external measurements are 37 inches long by 21 1/2 inches wide and 20 inches deep. It rests on two 1 1/2 inch deep runners to keep it raised off the floor. The internal measurements are 34 inches long by 18 inches wide by 17 1/4 inches deep. The interior bottom of the chest shows signs of considerable use. This chest has some history and was clearly used by a working carpenter. The scratches along the back wall of the chest were likely caused by molding plane blades. Traditionally, wooden molding planes were stored at the rear of the chest, toe down. Because the blades were fixed in place with a wedge, they were usually not backed off after use unless there was a need to remove the blades and sharpen them. As a result, many chests of this type are similarly scratched from the protruding blades of molding planes as they were removed and returned to and from the chest. Typically, the bottom of the chest would also hold a jointer plane, various hand planes, and several hand saws, both rip and cross-cut. There are 6 internal tool tills that fit inside the chest, making access to smaller tools such as measuring and marking devices much easier. The tills are made of walnut, and the two top-lidded tills needed a bit of regluing. This photo shows the lower set of tills in place, followed by the middle set of tills, which also shows access to the bottom set, and finally, the top set of tills showing access to the middle set. The tills at all levels in the chest can be manipulated so that even with all of them in place, large tools at the bottom of the chest are accessible. 3 of the mitered end pieces had come loose from the till lids, and the nosing piece on the front edge of each lid had also started to separate. Now let's talk about hide glue. Hide glue is derived from collagen, a family of proteins that are the primary component of connective tissues such as skin and cartilage. Collagen makes up about 1/3 of all the protein in the bodies of most mammals, more than any other type of protein in the body by mass. Most collagen is in the skin, tendons, internal organs, and organic parts of bone. It is also found in cartilage and in bone marrow. When it is heated in water, collagen is converted into hide glue. Hide glue is man's oldest adhesive and was universally and exclusively used until the emergence of synthetic adhesives after the First World War. One of the main attributes of hide glue is that it is reversible. If the tills need to be repaired by some future owner 100 years from now, he or she can easily separate the glue joints using steam or hot water. Given the age of the piece that I was restoring, I wanted to remain true to the original methods that were used in its original construction. Modern synthetic glues would have been much faster and easier to use, but would not have been true to the character of the piece or in keeping with its history. Hide glue must be prepared for use by hydrating it into a gelatinous form. The dried glue is added to water at a ratio of approximately 1 part dry glue to 2 parts water. The mixture is allowed to sit for several hours and preferably overnight. Hide glue is available in various strengths, but as the strength of the glue increases, the less open time you have for assembly. I purchased 2 types of glue online from Lee Valley: pearl hide glue and granular hide glue. Both glues came in dry form and were vacuum sealed. A 1-pound bag of either type costs about $16, and both glues are prepared in the same manner. Pearl hide glue is not as strong as granular hide glue, but takes longer to gel. With a longer working time, it is better for applications like veneering, where you need time to fit, but where high strength is not required. Given that I had never worked with hide glue before, was working by myself with a clamping jig, and was working in an unheated shop on a 60-degree day, I knew that I would likely need the additional open time that the pearl hide glue would afford me. Granular hide glue is very strong, but has a correspondingly short open time. It is nearly double in strength when compared to pearl hide glue, and is good for uncomplicated assemblies where strength is critical. Once the glue has been hydrated, it resembles pearls or fish eggs and congeals into a solid, somewhat sticky, rubbery mass. In this photo, the jellied glue was taken from the refrigerator and is ready to be heated for use. Lacking a direct source of hot water in my shop, my gluing setup consists of a large coffee percolator, a small double boiler style glue pot, and a warming plate. The pot itself is rather small, but hide glue goes a long way, and I don't anticipate using it for large glue-ups. I'll use it mostly for period joinery, restorations, and repairs. Hide glue is still in wide use today among makers of musical instruments, especially luthiers. As such, small glue pots are the norm. The glue pot that I use is in the form of a double boiler. The inner container holds the glue, which is then immersed in a hot water bath in the outer container. The heat transfer melts the glue and keeps it at a working temperature. Most guides suggest the optimal working temperature for hide glue is approximately 140 degrees Fahrenheit. 120 degrees Fahrenheit is considered to be at the bottom end of the working range for the hide glue, and at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, the glue begins to break down. I purchased my glue pot and warming plate from Lee Valley at a cost of about $40. When up to full temperature, the water in the percolator reached nearly 175 degrees. Unfortunately, I was unable to get the glue in the pot to heat much beyond 120 degrees. I believe that this was due to several reasons. The temperature in my shop was somewhere in the ballpark of about 65 degrees. The glue had been taken from the refrigerator, and I did not allow it to come up to room temperature before placing it in the glue pot. Additionally, it was a rather damp day. Despite all of this, it only took about 15 minutes for the glue to come up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. After 15 minutes or so of heating the glue in the glue pot, the gelled glue was reduced to a thick liquid. The glue is ready to apply when it has the consistency of honey when stirred and runs off of the stir stick, as opposed to dripping off the stick as droplets of glue. Hide glue is traditionally applied with a glue brush. For this job, I selected a 5/0 glue brush made with pig bristles. As the till lids were thin and the pieces to be glued were along the narrow edge of the piece, I was reluctant to use any sort of bar clamp on them. I opted to make a simple clamping jig instead by cutting a 1/2-inch piece of plywood slightly longer than the till lids, gluing a brace block in place to the top side approximately 2 inches from each edge of the till lid, and then using wedges to push the end pieces tight against the till top until the glue had dried. Here's a close-up of the clamping jig showing how the wedges were used to hold the pieces in place. You'll also notice that I placed a small sheet of wax paper under the till top to prevent it from being glued to the plywood as a result of any squeeze out along the underside of the piece. Even though I was using the lower strength hide glue and conditions were not ideal, the glue set up rapidly, and it was a bit of a race to glue the joints, line everything up, and apply the clamps prior to the glue hardening. That said, the process is easily reversible, as was previously mentioned. These are the repaired till tops ready to be reattached to the tills. The glue had firmly set within 20 minutes of application of the glue to the joints, but I waited 24 hours prior to reassembly. Hide glue will never replace Titebond in my shop for normal glue-ups in general woodworking, but it will be my first choice for antique restorations or on any pieces that I build in which I'm trying to replicate the look and feel of period handwork. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Thanks.